You have not felt your fingers in an hour and you have stopped checking. That's the part nobody warns you about. Not the cold itself, the moment you stop noticing it. The wind died down a while ago, which should feel like good news. It isn't. Still, air at this temperature just means the cold has stopped announcing itself and started working quietly instead. Here's the actual math you're up against tonight. Exposed skin can freeze solid in as little as 30 minutes. A body left unprotected can slide from shivering to unconsciousness faster than most people think is possible. You're not being dramatic by taking this seriously. You are doing the only appropriate thing a human can do when the temperature is actively trying to kill you, which is to treat sleep, the most basic, unavoidable thing your body does every single day, as the single most dangerous task on tonight's schedule. 4 chapters. Each one is a piece of the system that has to work all at once or none of it works at all. If you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel. Have you ever wondered how humans, with no fur and no claws and no built-in defense against freezing to death, manage to sleep outside through weather that can kill a modern person in under an hour? You're about to find out, and you're going to need fire, shelter, and clothing all working correctly, because tonight, any one of them failing alone is enough. Before this video starts, quick thing, everything we talk about on this channel, the fire, the shelters, the survival tactics, the knowledge that kept ancient humans alive through winters that should have killed them, someone actually wrote all of it down. It's called the Primitive Survival Bible, and it covers exactly how to survive without any modern survival gadget. Learn survival techniques just like our ancient ancestors. Essential for everyone. Link in the description if you're interested. Let's begin. You didn't decide to get tired. The temperature decided for you. This is the part that surprises people the most. Ancient sleep wasn't triggered by darkness. It was triggered by cold. Modern researchers studying hunter-gatherer societies with no electricity. Groups like the Hadza in Tanzania, the San in Namibia, and the Tsimane in Bolivia found that people fall asleep roughly 3 hours after sunset, right as the ambient temperature is actively dropping, and wake up near the coldest point of the night just before dawn. Darkness wasn't the signal. The falling number was. Here's the lesser-known fact that reframes the entire night. These same groups sleep about an hour longer in winter than they do in summer. Not less, more. During the exact season when the environment outside is most dangerous, the human body appears to push itself toward more rest, not less. Which sounds backwards until you realize what sleep actually is out here. It isn't rest, it's a full body shutdown of your ability to notice danger, happening on purpose during the most dangerous month of the year. And that's the real stakes of tonight. Hypothermia doesn't need a blizzard to start working. It begins the moment your core body temperature drops below 95 degrees, and the progression from there is brutal and specific. First, uncontrollable shivering, your body's last attempt to generate its own heat through movement. Then confusion. Then a strange, dangerous calm, where people stop shivering, stop feeling cold, and sometimes even start removing their own clothing right before the end. A real documented phenomenon doctors call paradoxical undressing, caused by the brain losing the ability to correctly read its own temperature. Below a certain point, brain function simply stops. You are not walking into a metaphor tonight. You are walking into a biological clock with an ending that has been documented in exhaustive clinical detail, and your only advantage over it is that you are not doing this without a plan, which is exactly why every single choice from here forward, the fire, the shelter, the layers on your body, isn't decoration. It's the plan. Fire is the oldest weapon you have against tonight, and it is also, historically, the hardest one to keep working. Humans have been deliberately controlling fire for a genuinely staggering length of time. The oldest strong evidence, hearths in Suffolk, England, containing pyrite fragments that show fires being purposefully lit and maintained, not accidental, dates back roughly 400,000 years. This wasn't a lucky spark. It was already a skill by the time it was that old, sophisticated enough that researchers can tell the difference between this fire happened and someone kept relighting this fire on purpose. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. During the coldest, most dangerous stretch of the entire Ice Age, a period called the last glacial maximum, roughly 26,500 to 19,000 years ago, evidence of fire use becomes strangely, mysteriously rare in the archaeological record. Exactly when humans needed fire the most, the physical proof of it nearly disappears. Part of the answer showed up recently, and it's the kind of detail that changes how you picture the whole night. At a site called Magirich in Ukraine, archaeologists studying ancient hearths found them packed with burned animal bone and almost no wood charcoal at all. On the treeless, frozen Ice Age steppe, when the wood ran out, people didn't go without fire. They burned bone instead, the leftover skeleton of the animal that had already fed them, repurposed as fuel to get through the exact night that followed. Bone burns hotter and longer than wood, but it takes real skill to keep a bone fire lit, which means the people doing this had already solved a problem most of us would never think to have. So tonight, that's your fire. Not a neat little campfire from a cartoon. A fire built from what's actually available, tended by someone who knows that letting it die isn't an inconvenience. It's the difference between a survivable night and a fatal one. You feed it, you don't leave it, ever. Fire alone doesn't win the night. You need something between you and the wind, and out here, that something is sometimes an entire animal. Across Central and Eastern Europe, archaeologists have found dome-shaped shelters built almost entirely from mammoth bones, skulls and leg bones stacked into a frame, curved tusks forming the roof structure, hides and sod layered over the top to seal it. At a site in Kostenki, Russia, one of these structures was built from the bones of at least 60 mammoths. That is not a shelter someone threw together in an afternoon. That is a massive, deliberate investment of labor, reused as a fixed point in the landscape across generations. Likely because nearby freshwater springs stayed liquid even in the depths of winter, drawing animals, and therefore people, back to the same spot again and again. Here's the lesser-known detail that actually matters for survival. These shelters were dug partly into the ground, semi-subterranean, not just sitting on top of the earth. That's not an aesthetic choice. The ground itself becomes a thermal buffer, blocking wind and slowing heat loss in a way nothing built purely above ground can match. You are not just building walls, you are borrowing the planet's own insulation. But not every night looked like this. During the short Ice Age summers, groups moved constantly across open plains, and shelter was often nothing more than a hide stretched over bent branches, or no structure at all, beyond the bodies of the people sleeping pressed against you. Modern sleep research on Hadza hunter-gatherers found that fire was present on 67% of all nights recorded, meaning for the rest, warmth came from something simpler. Other people, deliberately close, on purpose, sharing body heat as a functioning survival system, not just comfort. You are never sleeping alone out here. Here's the invention that might matter more than the spear, more than fire itself, and almost nobody names it when they talk about ancient survival: the needle. When humans first pushed into northern, colder climates around 45,000 years ago, clothing was simple: loose draped hides that doubled as blankets, baby carriers, even makeshift gloves for handling stone tools. Functional, but full of gaps. Loose hide lets warm air escape exactly the way an unzipped jacket does. Then, around 30,000 years ago, the eyed sewing needle shows up in the archaeological record. Small, sharp, with a hole for thread. Historians have called it one of the most important inventions in human history, and the reason is almost embarrassingly simple. A needle lets you tailor clothing to an actual body instead of just wrapping something around it. Ice Age humans were sewing 3 and 4 layers of animal skin. Reindeer, Arctic fox, hare, even birds, chosen specifically for how well each one insulated. stitched into fitted garments that trapped heat the loose hide never could. That single tool is the difference between wearing a blanket and wearing a system. And tonight, that system is doing more work than you'll ever consciously notice. It is quite literally the layer standing between your skin and the 30-minute frostbite clock running in the background of everything you're doing right now. And your body itself isn't fighting this completely unarmed either. Some ancient human relatives had physical adaptations built directly into their anatomy. Broader trunks, shorter limbs, body shapes that reduced the surface area relative to volume, which is just a technical way of saying less skin exposed to lose heat through, relative to how much body there is generating it. Even their nasal structure appears to have been shaped to warm and humidify freezing air before it ever reached the lungs. Anatomy wasn't a replacement for fire, shelter, and clothing. It was one more layer stacked on top of all the others. And here's the strangest, most lesser-known fact of the entire night. Some researchers believe certain ancient human relatives may not have fought through winter at all. A controversial but genuinely fascinating study examined roughly 7,500 fossils from a site in Spain and found bone damage consistent with severe seasonal metabolic slowdown, patterns that some scientists argue point toward a hibernation-like state 500,000 years ago as a response to extreme winter food scarcity. It's disputed. It's not settled science, but somewhere in your ancestry, there may have been humans who looked at winter, decided fighting it every single night wasn't worth it, and simply slowed their bodies down until it passed. You don't have that option tonight. Tonight, you do this the hard way, fire tended, shelter sealed, layers stitched tight, and you wake up on the other side of it, which is exactly the plan working. 4 chapters. The drop, where the cold itself decided when your body would sleep, and the clock started the second it did. The fire, nearly lost during the coldest years of the entire Ice Age, kept alive by burning bone when the wood ran out. The walls, sometimes 60 mammoths worth of them, sometimes nothing but the people sleeping pressed against you. And the layers, a single needle turning loose hide into something that could actually keep a human alive through a night built to kill one. None of it was automatic. Somewhere 500,000 years ago, some of your ancestors may have simply slept through the whole problem instead of solving it. And we're still finding the evidence of what that cost them, written directly into their bones. If this one made you want to check the thermostat, the next one will too. Watch the other videos.